The Jacksonville Jaguars just did something the NFL didn't see coming. Not because they won, but because of how they won. Nobody expected a 25-3 road demolition of the Tennessee Titans to feel this calm, this controlled, this inevitable. This wasn't a shootout, a comeback, or a lucky bounce. It was a team walking into a divisional fight and treating it like a walkthrough, as if they already knew the ending before the first snap. And that's what should scare the rest of the league, because when a team wins this cleanly while still making mistakes, it means they're operating on a different level. What's really striking isn't just the score, but the mood. No panic when penalties piled up, no chaos when starter Walker Little left with a concussion, no desperation, even when the run game sputtered. Instead, the Jaguars played with a quiet confidence that's rare in December, especially for a team still labeled by some as on the rise. They didn't need everything to go right. They just needed enough, and that's the mark of a team that stopped hoping for success and started expecting it. While others in the AFC South are scrambling, Jacksonville looks like it's already mapped out the next month. But here's the twist. None of this works without the man at the center of it all staying ice cold under pressure. While everyone's been waiting for Trevor Lawrence to explode with a highlight reel game, he's quietly delivering something far more valuable: total command. And that shift from potential to poise might be the real story behind this win. Because if Lawrence has truly turned the corner, then what we saw in Tennessee wasn't just a statement, it was a preview. But before we get into that, hit that like and subscribe button for more Jaguars and all the NFL content. Let's aim for 300 likes on this video. The Jacksonville Jaguars didn't need fireworks from Trevor Lawrence. They needed precision, patience, and zero mistakes. And that's exactly what he gave them. In a game where chaos could have crept in at any moment, Lawrence stayed locked in, completing 16 of 27 passes for 229 yards and 2 touchdowns, with not a single turnover. That kind of clean, mistake-free performance against a physical front like Tennessee's isn't just efficient, it's playoff-caliber control. He didn't force deep bombs or chase social media clips. He took what the defense gave him, stepped up in clean pockets, and used his legs only when necessary, turning potential losses into manageable gains. What stood out most wasn't his arm, it was his mind. Every read felt deliberate. Every throw landed where it needed to, not where it would look flashy. On 3rd and medium, he hit checkdowns that moved the chains. On early downs, he attacked the soft spots with timing and trust. There was no panic when pressure came, no second-guessing when routes broke open late. This was Lawrence playing like a quarterback who's finally internalized that winning ugly in December matters more than winning pretty in September. And for a team with real postseason ambitions, that maturity is worth more than stats. But here's what most people missed. Lawrence didn't do this alone. His calm only translates into points when he has a reliable safety valve. And that's where the next piece of this offense quietly stepped up. Because while everyone watches for the deep ball or the breakaway run, the real engine of this surge isn't making headlines. It's making catches in traffic, converting 3rd downs, and giving Lawrence the confidence to stay patient. And his name? Jakobi Meyers, the unassuming target turning into Jacksonville's most consistent weapon. Forget the highlight reels, Jakobi Meyers is winning games in the quiet spaces where championships are actually built. Against the Tennessee Titans, he caught all 6 targets, 0 drops, 0 wasted snaps, just constant, reliable movement in the middle of the field. He didn't need double moves, trick routes, or defensive breakdowns. He simply ran clean routes, found open grass with perfect timing, and gave Trevor Lawrence the kind of dependable target every elite quarterback eventually leans on. This wasn't a breakout game. It was a continuation of a rhythm that's becoming impossible to ignore. What makes Meyers so dangerous isn't speed or size, it's anticipation. On one critical 3rd down, Parker Washington pulled the safety deep, and Meyers slid underneath into the void like he'd rehearsed it in his sleep. The ball was already in the air before he finished his break, a sign of total sync between quarterback and receiver. That's not luck. That's chemistry built over weeks of reps, and it's turning short passes into 1st downs and 1st downs into sustained drives. While others chase splash plays, Meyers is turning every possession into a quiet threat. But here's the real story no one's talking about. Meyers isn't meant to be the only answer. He's the anchor that makes everything else possible. His reliability forces defenses to honor the middle, which opens the field for others to explode. And right now, that others group is growing faster than anyone expected. Because while Meyers does the dirty work, a collection of young weapons is starting to click around him, each with a different role, each more dangerous when Meyers draws the attention. And that's where the Jaguars' offense stops being predictable and starts becoming truly explosive. The Jacksonville Jaguars aren't relying on one star to carry them, they're building a full cast where every role matters. Parker Washington stretches the field vertically, forcing safeties to turn their backs and open the middle for others. Brian Thomas Jr., back from injury, wasted no time reestablishing his smooth, long-striding presence, turning short catches into chunk plays with after-the-catch urgency. And then there's Brenton Strange, who didn't just catch a touchdown, he attacked the seam with purpose, showing he can win beyond the flat and become a real threat between zones. This isn't a group waiting for one guy to get hot. It's a system designed so that if one door closes, 3 others swing wide open. What's even more promising is the glimpse of what's coming. Travis Hunter, still working his way back, hasn't played a full game yet, but when he does, the Jaguars will have a true mismatch creator who can line up anywhere and win. Pair that versatility with Meyers' reliability, Washington's deep speed, Thomas Jr.'s Y-ack ability, and Strange's developing seam presence, and you've got a nightmare for defensive coordinators. No single coverage scheme can account for all those layers at once. Shade one and another burns you. Double one and someone else gets one-on-one. But here's the catch. All this talent only reaches its ceiling if the foundation holds. The roots can be perfect, the timing flawless, the concept's brilliant, but without time to let them develop, it all collapses. And that's where the unsung battle of this offense takes place, not in the end zone, but 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Because while the skill players are clicking, the Jaguars' ability to protect the pocket and consistently move the chains on the ground will decide whether this offense soars in January, or stalls when it matters most. While the skill players grabbed headlines, the Jacksonville Jaguars offensive line delivered one of its most critical performances of the season, especially considering the circumstances. Even after Walker Little, a key starter, exited with a concussion, the unit held firm enough to give Trevor Lawrence clean pockets and time to read the field. That stability allowed deep concepts to develop and short throws to turn into gains after the catch. On the road against a defense featuring Jeffrey Simmons, that kind of composure up front doesn't happen by accident. It's discipline, communication, and trust under pressure. But here's the split in their identity. Pass protection looked controlled, yet the run game couldn't find rhythm. Travis Etienne, usually a dynamic force, struggled to get past the line of scrimmage, often met by stacked boxes and active linebackers. Rookie Payshul Tutin, despite punching in a short touchdown, had to grind for every yard, rarely benefiting from clean lanes or sustained push. The numbers tell the story. Modest rushing totals despite high attempt volume, proof that the ground attack didn't carry its weight. And in December, when weather tightens and clocks shorten, that imbalance becomes a real concern. The good news? This line has already proven it can dominate when clicking. Remember their early season run game dominance. So this Tennessee performance wasn't a collapse. It was a reminder. The Jaguars don't need perfection from their front five, but they do need consistency in both phases. Because if they can't establish the run against physical fronts like the upcoming Indianapolis Colts, the entire offense leans harder on Lawrence, and that's a risk no contender wants in January. Which brings us to the other side of the ball, where the defense didn't just hold the line, they rewrote the script entirely. If the Jacksonville Jaguars offense showed control, the defense delivered sheer suffocation. From the first snap, Josh Hines-Allen turned the backfield into his personal territory, finishing with 2 sacks and constant disruption that never let Tennessee settle into rhythm. But this wasn't a one-man show. Inside, Austin Johnson added another sack, while veterans like Samson Ebukam and Lorenzo Carter, not Gardeck, who is not on Jacksonville's roster, maintained disciplined gaps and collapsed escape lanes without over-pursuing. The result? Rookie quarterback Will Levis, not Cam Ward, was held to just 141 yards on 37 attempts and a miserable 3.7 yards per attempt, a stat line that screams total defensive command. What made this performance elite wasn't just pressure, it was restraint. The Jaguars rarely blitzed heavily. Instead, they rushed 4 mixed coverages and trusted their front to win one-on-ones. And when they did, every time Levis hit the top of his drop, the pocket tightened like a vice. No time to scan deep, no room to reset, just hurried throws into coverage that rallied instantly to the ball. They forced multiple fumbles, allowed only a single field goal, and turned a divisional road game into a clinic on how to neutralize a young developing quarterback without giving him any breathing room. But even in dominance, a flaw flickered, one that didn't cost them against Tennessee, but could be deadly against sharper opponents. Because while the defense controlled the line of scrimmage, it also handed the Titans free yardage through penalties that extended drives and kept hope alive far longer than it should have been. And that's the razor's edge this unit now walks. Physical enough to dominate, but disciplined enough to not self-sabotage. Because in a playoff game, those extra yards don't just hurt, they decide who goes home. 13 flags, 98 yards. One too many chances gifted to a team that had no business staying in the game. The Jacksonville Jaguars didn't just beat the Tennessee Titans. They nearly let them back in, not through talent, but through careless mistakes. Holds on the offensive line, illegal contact in the secondary, a block in the back that wiped out a potential big play. These weren't aggressive plays gone slightly late. They were lapses in discipline that turned manageable situations into fresh sets of downs for an offense that should have been buried by halftime. What's troubling isn't the number alone, it's the timing. Flags popped up on critical third downs, during red zone trips, and right after the defense had forced a stop. Instead of making Tennessee earn every inch, the Jaguars handed it to them. Against a struggling team like the Titans, it didn't matter. But imagine that same sequence against the Houston Texans, whose offense thrives on rhythm, or the Kansas City Chiefs, who turn one extra snap into a touchdown. In those games, a single penalty could flip field position, extend drives, and ultimately decide a playoff fate. The irony? This is a team built on intensity, physicality, and edge. And those are strengths. But intensity without control becomes a liability. The Jaguars don't need to play softer. They need to play smarter. Because right now, they're good enough to win while shooting themselves in the foot. But to truly contend in January, they'll need to prove they can dominate without giving free yards to opponents who won't waste them. And that leads to the biggest question of all. Not just about one game, but about who controls the entire AFC South down the stretch. At 8-4, the Jacksonville Jaguars aren't just in the playoff hunt, they're shaping the entire landscape of the AFC South. While the Houston Texans and Indianapolis Colts trade wins and losses, Jacksonville has quietly strung together the kind of divisional dominance that matters most in December. Their win over Tennessee wasn't just about points. It was about posture. A team that can absorb injuries, overcome self-inflicted errors, and still deliver a 3-score road victory is sending a clear message. They're no longer reacting to the race. They're dictating it. The timing couldn't be sharper. With the Texans handing the Colts a loss just days earlier, the path to the division crown now runs through a critical stretch that includes head-to-head matchups against both rivals. One more win doesn't just improve their record, it redefines the power structure of the entire conference. And unlike earlier in the season, the Jaguars now have the pieces clicking in unison. Trevor Lawrence playing with calm command, Jacoby Meyers anchoring a diversifying passing attack, and a defense led by Josh Hines-Allen that can shut down even promising young quarterbacks like Will Levis, who is in his second season, not a rookie. But the real test isn't just winning the AFC South. It's whether this version of Jacksonville can transition from divisional bully to conference threat. If they clean up the penalties, solidify the run game, and stay healthy, they won't just be a playoff team. They'll be the kind of balanced, disciplined, and emotionally steady squad that wins in January. And that's the final twist no one saw coming. While everyone was watching for explosions, the Jaguars were building something far more dangerous: consistency. And in the NFL, that's the quietest killer of all.